The Confident Stock podcast is brought to you by My Evergreen Med Spa. Located in Houston in the Woodlands, My Evergreen Med Spa brings to you the latest aesthetic treatments in the most luxurious environment. Remember, My Evergreen Med Spa, it's me time elevated. Welcome to the Confident Stock Podcast. I'm Dr. Rednam, and I'm a board-certified plastic surgeon in Houston, Texas, with my Houston Surgeons, also known as the Confident Stock. And if you are watching this, you can tell I'm not in studio right now. I could not take advantage of this beautiful background in Tahoe, California. I have two very innovative gentlemen on today, and I'm so excited. And I'm telling you their full names today, so please let me introduce Juan Jose Chacón Quiros, who is the founder and a board member at Motiva Establishment Labs, and Roberto de Mezerville Arias, who is the Chief Technology Officer at Motiva Establishment Labs. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Rednam.
So these two gentlemen have done some very innovative things, and I want to dive right into it. Motiva Implants became FDA-approved in the U.S. in September of 2024. But Motiva Implants are by no means new to the global market. Can you all let us know, when did Motiva Implants first become available globally?
Yes, of course. We started Establishment Labs in the year 2004. And it took us more than 6 years through various stages of research, development, conceptualization, validation, so many different things. And it was at the end of 2010 that they finally became available. And at first in just a few countries. Then in 2011, we added Europe. And then after that, we started going into more and more countries. We are now present in more than 90 countries worldwide.
Which is pretty impressive, and what is actually a pretty short amount of time.
Yes, absolutely. And the other really interesting thing is that, we actually left the U.S. for last. And sometimes you say, you leave the best for last. So that's kind of like what happened. Because, at first, we didn't have the resources to go through the FDA approval process, which cost a lot of money. So we had to take the company public in NASDAQ in 2018 so we could eventually get the necessary funding to be able to bring this technology to the US.
How many women would you estimate worldwide have had augmentations with Motiva implants so far?
So we actually have very good estimates on that. So more than 2 million women. There are more than 4 million implants globally. So when you add on, like what we do in reconstruction, what we do in aesthetics. So we're talking about more than 2 million women over the last, now almost 15 years.
That's amazing. And I point that out because I know a lot of people are like, oh, they're brand new. Well, no, they've been around for a while. They're just new to us here in the U.S. And as for a silicone implant new on the market in the U.S., there hasn't been anything since 2013, which is pretty impressive to kind of be the new player in the game in the U.S. How did you two decide that you wanted to do this, right? This was no small undertaking to say, hey, we're going to start from scratch. What inspired you to do that?
So in my case, I come from a family of plastic surgeons, and I was always kind of like part of the family business. Although I was trained as an economist, I was always in the operating room with my parents, taking care of patients, as a secretary, all these different roles. And once you understand the journey of patients in breast aesthetics and breast reconstruction eventually, and you realize what plastic surgeons have to go through and how, at the time, they basically didn't have the right technology. So they had to make up for the lack of technology with their expertise, their artistry. So, I think the basis for Establishment Labs is, if we could give, a woman's health angle to technology and bring you technology from the 21st century, then actually technology will be on your side. And this way you can deliver better outcomes for women.
So it sounds like you really felt like there was something missing in what was available.
Oh, absolutely. We had no doubt. And I think Roberto can speak from his side, from coming of the side of technology, what it meant to be able to start from scratch.
Yeah, I think that it is important that what you just said, there was a need. So I also had some experience in the industry for breast implants with another company, and we didn't invent breast implants, but we did identify several things that we thought that it could be improved. So that's where that need was found. And from JJ's perspective on the surgical and commercial world, and from our perspective on the technology and the scientific part, we started identifying that there could be different things that could be put in place in order to improve the safety profile of the products. And that's how we started bringing all these innovations that over time have added to be very significant with the outcomes of the patients that we have these days.
So how did the two of you meet? How did the two of you begin this process?
Oh, it was, we began all of this in Costa Rica, in San Jose, Costa Rica. And Costa Rica is this small. It's super small. So, at the time, I was looking for the right engineers to be able to start, the development phase. And, friends and friends and friends. And we eventually found a group. And what's really interesting is that, if you think about that first group that was in charge of creating the first Motiva implant that went to market, we're still here. We're still here. So it gives you an idea of the commitment that this group has had for so many years.
Absolutely, yeah.
I love that. I don't think that that's as common to still have the original team when you've gotten to the level that you have now. And I agree. I think that speaks a lot to how well you guys work and innovate together. So let's talk a little bit about the levels, right? So you guys really essentially started from scratch. You decided to rethink the whole process. I want to talk starting with the shell. You have the silk surface nano texture. What was your thought process when you were engineering that, and why did you engineer it the way you did?
Oh, we love to start in that topic specifically because it is a game changer, we believe, and it is all starting at a cell level. So understanding how the cells were reacting. So like when we started it, we traditional smooth implants were out there since the 60s. And then sometime in the 80s, there was some silicone features or textures that were started to have more traction. And that's how all these anatomically shaped implants were developed, because they could stick into place and everything. But the literature was still showing that there was some gaps that at a cell level, it required more attention to. So like since the very beginning, we could have decided just to go for one of those options, but we did the work and go deep on the science and the scientific principles of what happens with the cell and all the immune response and the cascade of that events. And then we came up with a surface that was controlled, because at a cell level, it is important that you have in the entire circumference of the implant the same cell behaviors. And that's how we came up with a surface that is based in very good scientific backgrounds. And we came up to build a surface that minimizes the inflammatory reaction. And that on the healing process after putting an implant in the surrounding tissues of the breast makes a huge difference. And that's why on the outcomes, when you see and consistently over the 15 years that we've been on the market, how the capsular contracture rates are within a very low percentage, less than 1%. And that's consistently across the entire real world data that we have. So that makes the principles of the surface that we design and build for that purpose to actually, have the outcomes that we would expect.
Which is just amazing. Really, you created a more biocompatible implant so that the body is not recognizing it necessarily as something as foreign as maybe some of the other designs, correct?
That's it. At the end, it summarizes in a low inflammatory surface. So this allows the healing process to be better when you compare to other cell behaviors with different surfaces.
And I love where your brains went with that, because rather than you're trying to like integrate better with the body rather than trying to work around the other way. So when you were looking at the design for that, actually, when someone were to feel it, does it feel rough to the touch or does it feel overall smooth?
I think the idea, and if actually the name of that surface, SmoothSilk, is that it feels smooth like silk. It has that silky, nice feeling, and that's very much what the cells are feeling, when they interact with this surface. Is this soft behavior instead of this very reactive, inflammatory behavior that we saw in the past. And one of the beauties of all of this is that, when we created the ergonomic implant, the whole idea with ergonomy is to make implants more comfortable. Because at the end, women are wearing these implants. So you don't want these to be uncomfortable. So the combination of that surface with an implant whose components are basically adapting to your movement, that is, I think, the most important thing here in terms of our contributions to aesthetics in breast.
And Dr. Rednam, I think that to what JJ is saying, it starts with the surface, right? Because it's what is going to be interacting with the tissue that is surrounding the breast, right? But also it is just the start. Then we have to take care of like what's happening after that implant is in place. So what JJ is talking about, the ergonomy and the dynamics it's very relevant. So how do we engineer that true monoblock around that? Is not only the surface. The surface is the first step at a cell level, but then how is this implant going to be, integrated in the woman's lifestyle? It is important. So that's where we continue with the engineering and the power of engineering, helping us out understand the breast tissue dynamics and how we could bring something that is more balanced. So women at the end basically don't feel that they have the implants.
So now in the U.S., we have both the smooth as well as the ergonomics. Can you explain how the progressive gel is different between those two?
Yes.
Actually, it's very interesting because it's not only the gel, the shell is different. So every time we design an implant, we design all the components again. We don't just like add to a shell different types of gels and that's it. Yeah. Good luck with that, because that's not how, your body is going to understand that device. So for instance, in the case of the round SmoothSilk, what we created is a shell that is going to basically interact with the behavior of the Progressive Gel Plus so that while it's soft, it keeps its shape continuously. Mm-hmm. Now, when you move to the ergonomics, that's a different design objective. With the ergonomics, we want that implant to have some degree of movement. We want it to feel more like natural tissue. So therefore, we created a shell that interacts with the Progressive Gel Ultima in a way that basically it's better for the day-to-day of these women who want to look more natural. So those are our differences that we took upon in our design from day one.
And as a plastic surgeon, that's important because I have patients who come in wanting different aesthetic looks and they may have different needs. And so having one implant be right for everybody just doesn't make sense. So it's really nice to be able to have those options and to really put that power back in my patient's hand to decide what kind of look and feel they want.
Absolutely. And it has to do also with for that outcomes, we have different products, as you said. And what JJ explains very well is like, there has to be a balance between the viscoelasticity properties of each of the materials. If you want to maintain an upper pole fullness, that it's something that is very common in some of the regions in the United States and in other OUS countries, like you have that option with that design that it's a shell with the gel to provide that. But if you want to be having as a result something more natural, then you have the viscoelasticity properties with the shell and the gel that will result in a more dynamic implant. Yeah.
anyone who's seen a Motiva implant knows they are this beautiful blue color. What's the purpose of that? Is it just for the color? Or is there something more to it? I know the answer to this. I'm just asking.
No, actually, we believe also that this is thinking about the long term, like to be able to assure that there's a protection on the shell to minimize the diffusion of low molecular weights, the diffusion of any, silicone trying to get out of the implant. We have in place a barrier. So traditionally, the barrier is the same color of the silicone. Basically, there's no color; it's translucent. So we strongly believe that to be able to verify with an indicator that the barrier is present in the entire circumference, in the entire body of the implant was very important and relevant. So we decided to go for blue because it was the best contrast on the surgical environment, right? With the blood and everything. It's very easy to see for surgeons to be able to locate it right where you need to. So that contrast with the blue was important. That's how the BlueSeal was born.
And
about this, because it is a differentiator, right? Since the beginning of the breast implant field, silicone field breast implants, there was no color on them, and we brought the BlueSeal, and this is an important differentiator of our technology, but also it is making a point of bringing new technologies that little by little you start adding more safety to the device. So also, when you're doing that, there's a lot of challenges that come to the attention of the regulators. And when you're bringing a new surface that also has a color, so going through that process of getting that definitely was a challenging road. But when we were convinced that it was to add value to the woman's health at the end, so it was challenging, but I think that it made all the sense of the world.
Well, it's an extra step, but it's an extra step for safety. And I think that with new innovation, it not only obviously is an excellent product, but it also pushes others in the industry to do better. I think it's always good to have a little bit of friendly competition because it pushes everybody to be better.
Absolutely.
Yes, and it also pushes plastic surgeons to use this technology in new, innovative ways, because it's, in the past, for instance, you would think twice before putting an implant above the muscle and not thinking about the risk of higher capsular contracture rates or having, palpability of the implant or rippling of the implant. Now with this technology, when a patient is a good candidate for that, then now it can be done. So these new options that the technology gives creates, a space for the artistic behavior of the plastic surgeons to really shine through. And I think that is fundamental as part of this. And then there's the other part of the patient, because with this technology, patients are becoming more educated about safety, but also about their choices. And I think that's a wonderful environment for more innovation to come in the future.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that we are very much moving into an era where we're trying to preserve everything we can. We're realizing preserving anatomy is so important. And so by having more options as a plastic surgeon, I'm able to provide better care. So I 100% agree with you that we have to continue to keep looking for better and better options for our patients.
We believe that technology by itself will not make a change. It has to be an evolution that goes along with the surgical techniques. And over the years, you can imagine how much progress we've seen, to the point that in the future for us, minimal invasive procedure, being able to have products that respects the natural structures of the breast, it's the right direction. Minimizing the incisions, like being able to have faster recovery. We have seen this, and the only way that this is possible is with this evolution of not only the technology that we bring to your hands, but it has to be also something in a progress and an evolution with the plastic surgeons.
Agreed. It has to, you're right. It's not just technology. We also have to evolve with the technology. So that kind of brings me to my next point that I really wanted to talk to you guys about is suppose somebody is out there and they are a budding, they like medical inventor. What kind of advice could you give them? Because you two have done something pretty amazing, but it wasn't easy. It took a lot of time and it took a lot of work. So what on this side of it, what advice would you give to somebody?
Well, I think there are many aspects of the story of Establishment Labs that can be good lessons for innovators, entrepreneurs in in the medical field. Number one, is that if you have a problem that you have a good idea on how it can be solved, you can start from scratch without needing a lot of money to be able to create your first proof of concept. There's always this idea that you need a tremendous amount of money to get started. That's not right. The other part is about curiosity. Like you can find in so many places good information by doing research, looking in the internet, talking to the people that have those problems and people who have come closer to the solutions. And eventually, once you have something that matters, you will find investors. You will find people who want to support you. But without that first part, there's no way the rest can happen. And I think, innovators should always have that inner strength to be able to get through that first phase.
That's great advice. What about you, Roberto? Anything that you have to add to that?
JJ absolutely nailed it. But I will just add that in our company, we like to think that when you're doing the right things, the right things happen, the good things happen. And there are challenges as we all know, and maybe one thing is not going to solve everything, but you can little by little start making changes. And it doesn't have to be at the final product. It can be like the way that you're doing things that will increase the safety of the product. So I do believe that innovation, it's not only like the ultimate product that you see in front of you, it's like everything behind it, the way that you are thinking about a solution for a problem, the way that you envision since the very beginning, the way that you capture more ideas from your team, that most of the time they are the ones that are have the ideas that sometimes it's hard to see, but like connecting with the surgeons, connecting with the patients, like something that I really believe that had changes since the beginning on the way that we were doing it's woman at the center of what we're doing. A patient-centric approach for us, and the experience that I brought from before changed the whole way that we were doing. That woman can be my mother or my sister, my daughter. So like anything that we do, it's going to be thinking about how we can improve the results that they can get. So I think that bringing all that together will, and maintaining the curiosity, and I think it takes you to places that you will change.
I agree. There's so many problems. It's starting with isolating what's the issue and then how do we achieve it. And I agree with you that I think that there's always going to be teams of people who want to be collaborating when it's something worthwhile to fix. How many iterations of the implant did you go through before you got to your final product, out of curiosity?
Only imagine. There was so much going back and forth, and
yeah, I think we went through a process of 60 months. And in that 60 months, just to give you an idea, when it came to making the implant really 100% filled, not just theoretically 100% filled, real 100% filled, so that women, minimize at the maximum level the possibility of having rippling. That we went through 28 iterations to be able to get through that. So, multiply that by the number of sizes that we have. It's just a crazy process. But that's how much we cared about every detail in the implants that we are now bringing to, women worldwide. Because at the end, these are long-term implantable devices. So we should bring as much care as possible, not only on the safety and the manufacturing, but also in how we design them. And all of these things are, part of the same process. And in our case, it was a good 60 months of a lot of work.
Was there anything during the process that you guys encountered that kind of surprised you and you had to be creative with how you approached it? I'm sure there are many things, but like
all the time.
All the time,
and
yeah.
also because the more you keep going, the bigger the challenges are, right? So like at the very beginning, there's many things that you can solve in the lab and internally, but then you start growing and you start, growing your reach, and bigger problems start to come out. One of the things that I always like to mention is you have to be prepared that when you're doing things differently and you're bringing new technologies and new concepts, the first reaction, the normal reaction is, no, this is wrong. This cannot be right. And so to me, that has been one of the biggest challenges, because for us, imagine that thought process that we had to go through in the development in order to be here. But all of a sudden we might have been too early or too different to like make it something that was an easy transition. Like one example is the platform that we have, and it's been in the market for more than 10 years, that is a radio frequency platform that from the outside, patients, women can have the access from the outside to have an electronic serial number that will be, traceable to your device and will give all the information of that device. That in the world that we live, it can be a very good thing to have, that you don't depend on keeping the card in a very safe place so you know where it is, because, sometimes you get a surgery, surgeons move to another place, and this technology allows that. So bringing that into a breast implant was not an easy thing. As such as that you surface, the BlueSeal, the viscoelasticity properties, why these materials are different. So all those things, there was always a lot of challenging represented there. And going through the regulatory processes and requiring like 10 times more evidence of the scientific and engineering evidence that we needed in order to get the approvals was always very challenging, and keeps being challenging. It hasn't stopped.
Yeah. And for our non-physician listeners, that's a point that I want to make, is like, this isn't something that they woke up, they created something. And I mean, this is years and years of wins and losses and figuring out until you get to something that is the current product.
Exactly. No, there's a lot of interaction. There's a lot of work behind it. And moreover, when you are basing your solutions in scientific basis that are solid, it is even more difficult, because, for instance, one of the publications that we have in a very renowned journal like Nature Biomedical Engineer, like, you don't get to publish there every day. Like, you have to bring significant data and that it's relevant in order to get it published there. It took us like 6 years to work on that, to make a point, just to make a point about at a cell level, the surface was making a difference. So imagine 6 years of work in order to get there. It doesn't go easy.
Yeah. And I know we're really just at the beginning of Motiva's story. What is something that you can share, obviously, with us, that you're excited about, that will be coming out in the US?
Well, I think there are so many things that we are, working on these days, but also things that are already in the market outside of the US that should come into the US market in the next couple of years. And I think that's amazing, because it's going to be like, this super cycle of innovation for US surgeons and so many more choices for women in the US. But I would say for me, it definitely is this new platform of minimally invasive breast aesthetics, in which, you're basically able to go through very small incisions, preserve the breast tissue, give it more structure, make the breast, more like it should be, less damage to the breast, more sensation, less problems. So all these benefits, I think, are part of the story that is coming with this new platform. So hopefully we'll be able to share it with you soon enough.
And I know I got a sneak peek of these things, and I'm so excited for when that time comes. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for being on the show. This was such a great episode, and hopefully a lot of people learned some things that they haven't learned. And we're very excited for what Motiva will be bringing in the future. Is there anything that you guys would like to leave our listeners with? Any take-homes?
Well, I think, probably is how much we care about, the relationship with plastic surgeons, and how we can bring this technology to, in your hands, enhance the outcomes in these patients. So I think for us, that is what's driving our day-to-day lives. And as we bring more innovative things, it is in your hands that they will shine.
Yeah, and on my side, I will leave it very simple. Like, innovations and technologies will never stop, and you cannot pretend to have different results if you don't do things differently. So that all thinking about like, oh, this has been working for 20 years, not necessarily it's valid for these times. I think that it's important to challenge and to accept new technologies as part of a healthy evolution and be part of it instead of pushing it back.
Totally agree. And I'll also point out to our listeners that Motiva has made a commitment to only work with board certified plastic surgeons, which I think is extremely important as well. So JJ, Roberto, thank you so much for being on this episode. And thank you all for listening to this episode of The Confidence Doc. As always, I hope you learned something new, and tune in next week.